So this is what makes Hans Landa one of the most terrifying villains in film history. So
Sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Yes.
it's terrifying scene.
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
This is the opening scene of Inglouriousbasterds, and it is, well, relatively terrifying. What starts out as a sunny day on a French dairy farm quickly devolves into a paranoia-drenched life-or-death interrogation, culminating with the brutal murder of a hidden Jewish
Staring
man.
up to
Tarantino is a master of using intriguing and almost musical dialogue to drive tension. This works in part because Tarantino is a perfectionist. Brad Pitt went as far to say after filming Inglouriousbasterds that Tarantino's set places him as God, and there is no blasphemy.
the scars on the neck.
And a curse when it comes to filmmaking, for sure. Sometimes perfectionism can
Yes,
lead to a
character.
film's budget ballooning from delays and reshoots, but on the other hand, a director who believes in his project and his writing so much as to settle for nothing less than his vision can result in pretty amazing pieces of cinema, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. The sixth film in Tarantino canon was almost scrapped entirely for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons was that the script had leaked online a few years prior to release, but another huge reason was that Tarantino was having trouble finding an actor who could deliver the performance necessary to make Hans Landa work. For a while, it was actually Leonardo DiCaprio who was in line to play the film's primary protagonist. For all intents and purposes, DiCaprio would have probably been relatively fine. He's fluent in German and could certainly deliver a powerful performance, but Tarantino is, again, a perfectionist. The performance was going to be absolutely perfect, but the film wasn't going to happen at all. And Tarantino has even gone on record as to say that he thought that the character might be unplayable. A day before he was about to scrap the project entirely, he met Christoph Waltz and was gobsmacked with the perfection and ease with which he approached the character. He was actually instructed to hold
He appears to be a villain.
Tarantino didn't want the cast to know how good he actually was, so he instructed Waltz to give everyone a 6 instead of a 10 during that process. Waltz was told that if he felt actors begin to get competitive with him, that he was to lose. And in turn, the only actor who actually got to see a full-blown, full-effort performance during pre-production was Denis Ménochet, who played Pierre Lapardie in the film's opening sequence. The decision to hold Waltz back was made so that the actors would have a more authentic reaction to this, well, one-of-a-kind performance. The film in general is incredibly well written. It tells a complete story that could almost act as a standalone short film in 19 minutes. It opens on firewood on top of a hill. There is this rhythmic quality to which these chops take place. Each one of these axe chops are about 1 second apart. This is important because it sets a cadence. We begin the scene with the sound of essentially a ticking clock, as the camera pans to a small fleet of German troops approaching this farm. When Hans arrives, we know there is trouble afoot. His uniform alone could tell you that, but the confidence with which he enters the room gives us the feeling of a python entering a hamster cage. The contrasting stature of these actors tells you all you need to know immediately. Despite the fact that undoubtedly kill Hans very easily by hand if he so desired, Hans still sort of floats through the room as if he owns the place.
And he has a gun, so
He's trying to contain sheer and utter terror. It's all subtle and all oh so intimidating. Waltz himself could write a book on how to be threatening and charming at the same time, and Hans seems as cordial and polite as any house guest could possibly be, but it's the lack of warmth and pleasantries shown against this sort of overt politeness that really send a threatening message.
how he's asking for a med is actually very creepy.
But also through the writing, he pauses a little longer than usual. He holds eye contact for just a second too long, and Tarantino directs a performance that has that cadence we already discussed.
Monsieur, à votre famille et à vos vaches, je dis bravo.
And inversely, the Lapardie family can't and doesn't look at Hans for more than a brief moment. One of the first things Hans does upon entering the home is request a glass of milk. It's not an unusual request, after all, this is a dairy farm, but by doing this, Hans puts himself in this position of status. He's letting the family know that they are there to serve him in this moment. After excusing the family and reaffirming a spirit of trust by bringing up the fact that he left his soldiers outside, Hans and Pierre can finally get down to brass tacks. We at this point have no idea what exactly is going on. We just know that this family is likely in danger. This is usually the case when you have a period piece set in World War II and Germans are involved. But Pierre is particularly on edge about something that we haven't quite been able to comprehend yet. The request to switch to the English language might come off as pandering to an American audience, and by all means, it may very well be. However,
pandering
this later on in a somewhat brilliant way, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Hans quickly asserts his dominance in the entire situation by forcing Pierre to acknowledge
other
who Hans is,
people in the crowd to know.
Please tell me what you've heard.
I've heard that the Führer has put you in charge of rounding up the Jews left in France.
This is a signal of submission to his authority, and again, it is done through this wolf in sheep's clothing, utterly disarming niceness. Once the power dynamic has been established, Pierre quickly shifts to more of a bartering phase, and out of nervousness, goes for his pipe to calm his nerves. After some light reassurances that this is just a doubling of efforts in the spirit of thoroughness, Hans brings up one specific Jewish family that has been left unaccounted for, while very carefully making Pierre explain in detail what he remembers about the missing family. Names, ages, descriptions, we think he's just getting information, but Hans is really interrogating Pierre. Pierre's giving away everything he knows as the camera slowly pans around the table. Tarantino's way of telling us that literally and figuratively.
I think he brought out the bigger pipe to smoke or something.
Full
Right?
picture as the camera pans down under the floorboards and we see the aforementioned Jewish family
Jew.
huddled in a crawl space, hiding their breathing so as not to give away their secret. They're almost being crushed by the weight of what is transpiring above them. This is an eye-opening moment for the viewer as we now understand that an entire family's life is at stake, and the stakes of the situation in general are much graver than we initially anticipated. So after they wrap up the details, Hans asks for one final glass of milk. Making Pierre serve it to him is again just another psychological twist of the knife before
He
making
drank a
his
lot of
final
milk in
outbreak,
this.
forcing Pierre to call him by his nickname.
Did they call you the Jew Hunter?
Precisely.
From this point on, Hans plays out his winning hand one card.
I was just
He
smiling.
loves this moniker because he earned that moniker. Hans asks if he might be able to smoke his pipe, and boom. Almost comical as well
Yeah,
with the
okay.
Lindsay's gag. A way for Hans to insult Pierre before going in for the kill, and a message to Pierre.
The
that he
bigger
knows.
pipes.
Hans drops all the pleasantries and tells Pierre that he knows everything. The jig is up. Facial expressions shift into something more monstrous, and Hans tells Pierre that he not only knows that he is hiding Jews in his home,
Yeah,
but
this
that
guy's
they are
actually
under
tearing out.
influence,
That's
exactly
crazy.
where we've seen them before. This is where Tarantino's stroke of brilliance with the languages comes into play. From a filmmaking standpoint, switching to English for this scene would likely ease producers' concerns of an American movie-going audience's ability to understand the film without being confused. But within the structure of this scene, Hans, knowing that the family was under the floorboard from the moment he walked into the room, we now know he switched to English so that they couldn't understand what was happening when Pierre was
Didn't want
forced
to
kill.
understand.
Hans resumes his ruse, and the family is murdered in the dirt they were hiding in. Shoshana running away is the final image we have in the scene, and Hans allows her to live. His final words feel like they are left unfinished.
Au revoir, Shoshana!
As if he was going to add, until we meet again. He doesn't care if she lives or dies because he views her as lesser, as a rodent, nothing more, nothing less. It just so happens, though, that this moment gives this rodent the resolve to lock every high-ranking
depends.
German official in a crowded theater and burn them alive later in the film. This 19-minute opening scene of Inglouriousbasterds is a masterpiece of not only
Yeah,
storytelling and
the
writing,
first
but also
opening is
acting. It should
insane.
come as no surprise that Christoph Waltz won an Oscar for his performance in the film because he was able to capture a variety of different emotions, attitudes, and really personalities in ways that turn a human being who by all accounts in real life is very nice into something much more sinister and inhuman. This may not be a case of casting the right actor in the right role, it may very well be a case of casting the only actor who could conceivably play this role with any level of believability. The scene being a testament to how keeping that perfection in your sights without compromise can yield amazing results. Well guys, that's it for today's
Yeah,
episode of
standard.
Nostalgic
This channel is actually pretty good. You should watch more videos from him. The opening scene is actually pretty insane right there. Actually deserve the Oscar and all. Down below, type of nonsense below.